AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though she says I'm ruining her special day. I, 32F, have always been close to my sister, Emily, 29F. Growing up, we had a lot of shared experiences, but as adults, our lifestyles have diverged quite a bit. I live in a small but cozy two-bedroom apartment in the city. It's clean, organized, and honestly, it's just enough space for me. I work full-time and also do some freelance projects on the side, so my home is very much my sanctuary. I like things a certain way, and while I love my sister, I've always valued my personal space and routines. Emily recently got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, 31M. They've been together for 6 years, and I genuinely like Mark. They're both sweet, ambitious people. I'm happy for them. When she first announced the engagement, we were all excited. A few days later, Emily called me out of the blue and said she wanted to talk about something serious. She explained that she and Mark had been having a tough time finding a venue for their wedding because every place they liked was either too expensive or already booked for the summer, which is when they want to get married. Then she asked me if I could host the wedding at my apartment. She said she's always loved my home, and it would be intimate and personal, plus I live close to most of our friends and family, making logistics easier. I was stunned. My first thought was practical. My apartment barely has enough room for 4 people comfortably, let alone a wedding. We're talking about 60 to 70 guests at a minimum, including extended family. My living room is maybe 250 square feet, and the dining area is small. There's only one bathroom. I told Emily this gently, explaining that there was no way my apartment could accommodate that many people safely or comfortably. I also mentioned the stress it would cause me, not just the mess, but also dealing with food, seating, and potential damages. I try to offer alternatives, like renting a small hall or even a backyard space somewhere, but she seemed fixated on my apartment. Emily then started pushing harder. She said that she wanted the wedding to feel homey and authentic, and that my apartment had sentimental value. She mentioned all the holidays and birthday parties we hosted there and how perfect it would be for their special day. I told her again that I appreciated that she liked my home, but I just couldn't handle it. I offered to help with decorations, planning, and even helping her find a more suitable venue. I also suggested a smaller pre-wedding gathering or rehearsal dinner at my place, which I could handle, but she wasn't having it. Over the next week, Emily sent me multiple messages, almost daily, pleading with me and emphasizing how disappointed she would be if I didn't agree. She framed it as if I was letting her down in a huge way, saying things like, "I can't believe you'd put your comfort above my happiness, and this is my one chance to have the wedding I've always dreamed of, and you're standing in the way." It started to feel manipulative, and I realized she was trying to guilt me into saying yes. I held my ground. I explained as calmly as possible that hosting a wedding in my apartment isn't feasible, safe, or realistic. I also pointed out that this request went beyond just helping her. It would directly disrupt my life for weeks, potentially months, during planning and cleanup. I even offered to help financially if she needed to rent a venue, to show that I was supportive. Instead of appreciating my effort, Emily exploded. She accused me of being selfish, unkind, and unwilling to make sacrifices for family. She told other family members that I had refused to let her have the wedding of her dreams, which led to awkward calls and messages from my parents and cousins. I tried explaining my side to them, but Emily painted it as if I was actively sabotaging her happiness. Mark hasn't said much publicly, but I get the impression. He's uncomfortable with the whole situation. He has privately told me he understands my reasons, but doesn't want to upset Emily. I feel caught in the middle of this growing family tension. The problem escalated further when Emily suggested we compromise by just hosting the ceremony at my apartment. She said she could have an officiant come, and we could still have a separate reception elsewhere. I pointed out that even just the ceremony would involve at least 60 people standing in my tiny living room, plus cameras, decorations, and flowers. It's physically impossible without someone getting hurt or seriously overcrowding my space. I offered again to host a small pre-wedding brunch with just our immediate family, but she refused, insisting that my apartment should be the centerpiece of the event. I've tried everything I can think of to be supportive, offering help, attending meetings, providing advice, helping financially, but nothing seems to satisfy her. She's called me a horrible sister multiple times and has threatened to cut me out of the wedding entirely. I feel frustrated and hurt because I don't think it's unreasonable to say my apartment is too small for a wedding. I want to support her, but I also can't sacrifice my personal space and sanity. Some of our family members are taking Emily's side, saying I should just make it work or sisters do things for each other, while others understand my perspective and think she's being unrealistic. I'm now debating whether I should back down in any way, but I genuinely don't see how hosting a wedding in a 250 square foot apartment is possible without it turning into a disaster. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister host her wedding in my apartment, even though she says I'm ruining her special day? Or am I being reasonable in protecting my space and mental health? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée move in with me temporarily, even though she claims she needs a safe space. I, 28F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I live alone in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city. My younger brother, Jake, 26, recently got engaged to someone I had met only a few times, named Marissa, 25F. When I first met Marissa, I didn't feel an immediate connection. She was polite enough, but there was something off in the way she spoke about her previous relationships, like she blamed every failed relationship on the other person without reflecting on her own behavior. I brushed it off because I didn't want to be judgmental. A couple of weeks ago, Marissa called me out of the blue, sounding upset. She told me she had a situation at her apartment and needed a temporary place to stay. She said she was in an unsafe environment with her roommates and didn't feel comfortable staying there. She asked if she could stay in my place for a week or two while she figured things out. I hesitated immediately. I have my own routine, my own space, and I'm not great at sharing it with people I don't know well. I asked her for details about the situation, what exactly made it unsafe, what kind of arrangement she needed, and what her plan was afterward. Marissa was vague and kept saying things like, I can't stay there, it's dangerous, and I just need a friend right now. I told her that I wasn't comfortable having someone I barely know move in, even temporarily. I offered to help her look for alternative solutions like temporary sublets, hotels, or reaching out to local resources that help people in unsafe housing situations. I also offered to meet her somewhere for coffee to talk through her options. I thought this was fair because I didn't want her on the streets, but I also didn't want to compromise my own safety and peace of mind. When I told Jake about the situation, he immediately got defensive. He said I was being selfish and that family should stick together, especially when someone is in need. He told me Marissa is sensitive and going through a rough patch, and that I should just let her stay. I explained my concerns. I barely know Marissa, and I don't have a sense of her habits, cleanliness, or boundaries. My apartment is small, and my schedule is structured in a way that I rely on having my space. If there truly is a dangerous situation at her place, a week or two is a long time to risk having someone in my apartment without a solid plan. Jake argued that my apartment is a safe haven and that I should prioritize helping someone who's engaged to my brother, even if we aren't close. He said if I didn't let her stay, it could damage my relationship with both of them. I stuck to my decision. I sent Marissa a message offering to help her search for a sublet and giving her a list of safe temporary housing options, but I refused to let her stay in my apartment. She responded by sending me a long message explaining that she has nowhere else to go, that her roommates are mentally abusive and threatening, and that she felt completely abandoned by everyone except me. She said she had no one else in the city she could turn to. I felt bad, but my boundaries felt firm. I reminded her that I was willing to help in other ways, but that my apartment wasn't an option. Things escalated quickly. Jake called me multiple times, sometimes yelling, sometimes pleading. Marissa started sending me passive-aggressive texts like, I guess some people just don't care about family, or I thought you were supposed to be a good sister." I didn't respond to those messages directly because I didn't want to escalate the tension, but I felt myself becoming anxious and stressed from the constant messages. Last week, Jake came to my apartment unannounced. He was visibly upset and said that Marissa had nowhere else and that I was making her feel completely unsafe and unloved. I explained again that I was not comfortable having her stay, that I wasn't saying she couldn't find help, and that I was trying to assist in other ways. He accused me of being cold and heartless, saying that family is supposed to be there for each other no matter what. I felt cornered, so I asked him, if this situation were reversed, would you let a stranger stay in your apartment without knowing them well? He hesitated and admitted he probably wouldn't. I told him that Marissa is not a stranger I can vet, and I have no way of knowing whether her presence could cause harm to me, either intentionally or unintentionally. After that confrontation, I blocked Jake and Marissa temporarily because the constant messages were affecting my mental health. A few days later, my mom called and said she was upset with me for not letting Marissa stay. She said I shouldn't let fear get in the way of helping someone in need, and that I was making my brother miserable. I understand where my family is coming from, but I can't shake the feeling that I have the right to protect my own space. I also feel like I'm being penalized for having boundaries. I'm willing to help Marissa in other ways, but I just cannot have her living in my apartment, even temporarily. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée stay at my apartment, despite her claiming she's in danger and has nowhere else to go. Some additional context I feel is important. I live alone, I have a demanding job, and I deal with anxiety. My apartment is my sanctuary, and having someone else there, especially someone I barely know, would be extremely stressful. I've also had prior experiences with roommates or temporary house guests who were careless with bills, space, or boundaries, so I'm extra cautious. Jake and Marissa have since stopped talking to me, and I've been getting mixed messages from the rest of my family. Some say I'm right for protecting my boundaries. Others say I'm selfish and putting my comfort above helping someone in real danger. I am genuinely torn. I feel like I did the responsible thing, but I also feel guilty for not bending at least a little, considering her claim of danger. I've tried to offer alternatives, but it doesn't seem like they're good enough for her or for Jake. So, AITA? AITA for walking out on my sister's wedding and cutting ties with my family over something that might seem small to others. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, particularly with my younger sister, Hannah, 28F. Growing up, our parents were very traditional, and they favored Hannah in many ways. I excelled in school and sports, but Hannah was charming and sweet in a way that got her extra attention. I accepted it as kids, but as we got older, the differences in how we were treated became more glaring. I tried to maintain a relationship with her, but she developed a pattern of expecting me to accommodate her needs without reciprocating. Fast forward to the past few years. I've moved to a different city for work and built a life I'm proud of. I have a partner, Alex, 34M, who I love deeply, and we have a home and stable routine. My sister got engaged about a year ago, and she was very insistent that I would be involved in her wedding planning. I agreed, thinking I could help in a reasonable way, but she began to micromanage everything and treated my suggestions dismissively. I have a strong sense of aesthetics and value inclusivity in events, but Hannah insisted on a very narrow vision, and she made it clear that my opinions were not welcome unless they aligned perfectly with hers. The situation escalated when she asked me to participate in the bridal party. I was happy to support her, but I have severe anxiety, and crowded, high-stakes social events are extremely triggering for me. I explained this to her multiple times and suggested alternative ways I could contribute, like helping with decorations or handling RSVPs. She brushed it off repeatedly, telling me that being a bridesmaid was not optional if I truly loved her. I tried to compromise by attending the rehearsal dinner and helping with pre-wedding tasks, but the pressure only increased. 2 weeks before the wedding, Hannah made a last-minute change to the seating plan and asked me to manage all the guest accommodation details. I have a demanding job and simply could not drop everything for a task that was neither my responsibility nor something I could manage logistically. I explained this calmly, but she accused me of not caring about her wedding and threatened to exclude me from the ceremony entirely. I felt cornered and stressed beyond reason. The final straw came the day of the wedding. I woke up with a severe panic attack. I knew that attending would likely trigger a full-blown anxiety episode, potentially ruining the ceremony and my own well-being. I texted Hannah explaining that I could not be there in person and offered to send a heartfelt video message, contribute to the decorations one last time, and handle some post-wedding tasks remotely. She responded with a message that still haunts me. She called me selfish, dramatic, and accused me of trying to steal attention from her big day. I realized that no matter what I did, it would never be enough for her. I made the difficult decision to leave town and not attend the wedding. I spent that day with Alex, trying to calm myself and focus on my own mental health. When my family learned I had not attended, the fallout was intense. My parents were devastated and accused me of breaking the family apart and humiliating Hannah in front of her friends. Hannah cut off all contact, posted passive-aggressive comments on social media, and told mutual friends I couldn't handle adult responsibilities. I tried reaching out after a few weeks to explain my perspective calmly, but every attempt was met with anger or guilt tripping. Eventually, I realized that my mental health and peace of mind could not survive being around people who consistently invalidated me. I decided to step back from my family entirely, including Hannah. I blocked her on social media and have limited communication with my parents to necessary topics like family emergencies. Some friends tell me I overreacted and that attending the wedding, despite my anxiety, would have been the right thing to do. Others say that my family's behavior was toxic and that I did what I had to do to protect myself. I feel a deep sadness for missing my sister's wedding, but I also feel relief that I'm no longer subjecting myself to constant emotional manipulation. My dilemma is that my extended family is beginning to take sides. Cousins, aunts, and uncles keep asking me to apologize and reconcile, saying that family loyalty should come first. I've explained my reasons several times, but they insist that attending or at least sending a formal gift would have been the minimum requirement. I did send a gift, but apparently it wasn't sufficient in their eyes because it didn't compensate for my physical absence. I've tried to maintain dignity and boundaries, but I wonder if I went too far. I don't regret prioritizing my mental health, but the family conflict is isolating. I keep questioning if I should reach out and attempt to mend things, but the pattern of manipulation and invalidation makes me hesitant. I worry that even if I do try, nothing will change, and I'll just be caught in another cycle of guilt and emotional turmoil. So, AITA for walking out on my sister's wedding and choosing to step away from my family to protect my mental health? Was I wrong to prioritize myself in a situation where the societal expectation is to put family first, even at the cost of personal well-being? I feel torn between self-preservation and guilt, and I don't know if my actions make me an antagonist in my family's eyes or a reasonable person standing up for myself. The tension is constant. I miss the idea of having a close-knit family, but cannot reconcile it with how I am treated. The part that hurts the most is knowing that my sister is genuinely unhappy about my absence, yet unwilling to understand the reasoning. I keep replaying scenarios in my head where I could have handled it differently, but every alternative seems to have ended in the same accusation of selfishness. I am at a crossroads, trying to figure out if there's a way to maintain some connection without sacrificing my mental health, or if cutting ties completely is the only sustainable path. I would love insight from outsiders who might understand the balance between family expectations and personal boundaries. This situation has left me questioning not only my relationship with my sister, but also what family loyalty truly means when it comes at the expense of one's own sanity. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over a disagreement about my outfit. So, I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 25F. We were close as kids, but over the years, our personalities have diverged a lot. I tend to be a bit more outspoken and particular, while she's very detail-oriented and values harmony above all else. Our parents are divorced, and we spend holidays separately, but we do see each other for birthdays and major events. Emily got engaged last year, I was thrilled for her. I genuinely wanted her wedding to be perfect, and I expected to get along with her bridal party since I love her friends. The issue started months before the wedding. Emily and her fiancé, Josh, 27M, decided on a very specific wedding theme: modern elegance with muted tones. She sent out a note to the bridal party about attire, emphasizing that no bold colors, loud patterns, or overly flashy accessories would be acceptable. I understood the guidelines, but assumed that a tasteful dress in a subtle shade would be fine. I went shopping multiple times, trying to find something elegant, but also that felt like me. After weeks of searching, I finally found a dress that I thought was perfect: a dusty rose, satin midi dress with a slight shimmer. It was formal, fit the muted color theme, and I felt beautiful in it. I sent Emily a picture, and she texted back, "It's pretty, but can we talk about the color? I'm concerned it might stand out too much against the palette." I thought this was reasonable and agreed to meet her and the other bridesmaids to see how it looked. When we met, Emily had brought swatches and showed me that the other bridesmaids would be wearing shades like soft beige, light taupe, and muted lavender. My dusty rose dress did have more saturation than the others, but I felt it complemented the theme and wasn't obnoxious. I tried to explain this to Emily, but she became increasingly upset, saying, "It's about the overall aesthetic. I want the photos to look cohesive. You wearing that dress will distract from the vibe I've envisioned." I suggested maybe we could get a slightly different accessory or maybe a shawl to tone it down, but she seemed adamant. After over an hour of debate, she basically told me I needed to pick a different dress if I wanted to be part of her wedding. I was frustrated because I had spent a lot of time and money picking something I thought fit the brief. I ended up storming out, saying that I felt like my personal style and effort weren't being respected. Fast forward a few weeks. I didn't buy a new dress. Instead, I called Emily and told her that I couldn't participate as a bridesmaid if she was going to dictate every detail of my attire. I said I'd still attend the wedding, but I wouldn't be in the bridal party. Emily was furious. She accused me of being selfish and sabotaging her wedding. She also made some comments about how I always had to make everything about yourself and that I ruined months of planning. I tried to explain that I was trying to find a compromise, but she insisted there was no compromise acceptable to her. The day of the wedding was tense. I wore a simple, elegant teal dress, not part of her palette, but not garish either. I wanted to respect her day without becoming invisible, and I felt this was a reasonable middle ground. However, when I arrived, the atmosphere was icy. Emily barely spoke to me, and the other bridesmaids avoided eye contact. The photographer even asked if there was some conflict because he noticed my dress didn't match the others, which made me feel embarrassed. During the ceremony, I tried to stay low profile, but Emily's glare made me so self-conscious that I almost considered leaving. During the reception, she gave a speech where she subtly mentioned the importance of thinking about others before yourself, and everyone looked at me. I realized she was publicly shaming me without naming me directly. After the wedding, Emily's fiancé texted me, saying, "I think we all could have handled this better," but Emily was very stressed. "I hope you understand." I replied that I did understand stress, but I also felt unfairly treated. Our parents have asked me to apologize, saying that I overreacted and that a bridesmaid dress dispute shouldn't have escalated to this level. Friends of Emily's have messaged me privately, saying that they felt I was being unreasonable and that the photos of the wedding looked awkward because I wasn't in the right color scheme. I have since tried reaching out to Emily multiple times, apologizing for any hurt I caused, and explaining that my intent was never to overshadow her wedding, but to assert some autonomy over my appearance. She refuses to respond. Our parents are caught in the middle, often asking both of us to just move on, but Emily is still visibly upset whenever I come around. Honestly, I feel like I was put in an impossible situation. Comply with a strict dress code I felt was unfair and ignore my personal style, or step back and risk being labeled selfish. I wanted to be part of her wedding in some way, but felt that being forced to wear something I didn't feel comfortable in would have made me miserable. Now, months later, I feel like I ruined my relationship with her over a dress, which seems absurd, but from Emily's perspective, I know I may have caused disappointment and stress during what was supposed to be one of the happiest days of her life. So, AITA for refusing to change my dress and stepping down from being a bridesmaid, knowing it upset my sister and her wedding party. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she demanded I could pay for half of it. I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emma, 28F. We grew up in a small town and were each other's support system through everything. I moved out of her hometown for my career about 10 years ago and have been living in a mid-sized city since. Emma stayed behind, working in retail and eventually managing a small boutique. We've always had a good relationship, despite the usual sibling arguments, but the last year has tested it in ways I never expected. Emma got engaged about 9 months ago to her fiancé, Alex, 30M, who I had met a few times and didn't dislike, but I wouldn't call us particularly close. Almost immediately after the engagement, Emma started talking about her dream wedding. I knew she wanted something big. She's always loved grand gestures, but I assumed, like most people, that she and Alex will be paying for the majority of it themselves. That assumption turned out to be wrong. About 6 months ago, Emma sat me down over coffee and dropped what she called the exciting part of wedding planning. She told me that she and Alex had decided they wanted a destination wedding at a vineyard in California. I immediately felt a little panicked because I live across the country and new travel costs alone would be significant. She then proceeded to tell me that she wanted me to host the wedding in my city because she assumed it would be cheaper than hosting it near their hometown. I laughed nervously and said that hosting a wedding wasn't really something I could just do. She then said, and I quote, "Well, that's why you'd be paying for half of it, obviously." I was stunned. I asked her to clarify, and she explained that she and Alex would contribute a portion, but because I live in a larger city and had more disposable income, they expected me to cover at least 50% of the total cost. I reminded her that I'm not a millionaire, that my apartment isn't equipped to host hundreds of people, and that her wedding plans included a venue, catering, floral arrangements, a live band, and all sorts of things that could easily run upwards of $50,000. She insisted that I could handle it, and that it would make the wedding so much more special if it was in my city. I tried to explain that hosting a wedding isn't like hosting a party. It involves insurance, permits, security, rentals, and a lot of money up front. I also reminded her that while I'm financially stable, my savings are earmarked for buying a house and emergency funds, and spending tens of thousands on our wedding would jeopardize that. She said I was being selfish and that family support was important. I tried to suggest alternatives. Maybe a smaller city, wedding near her hometown, or a compromise where she and Alex pay the majority and I help with smaller details. She said no. This isn't a compromise. It's your responsibility. At this point, I felt trapped and hurt. I told her that I simply couldn't host the wedding in my city or pay half of it. I offered to help in other ways. I could assist with planning, attend appointments via video call, or help research vendors in her city. She seemed to accept this at first, but then started guilt-tripping me in subtle ways. She would send messages like, "I guess I shouldn't have expected more from my big sister," or "It's sad that you won't be part of the most important day of my life because of money." A couple of months passed, and the situation didn't improve. Every time we talked, she brought up how disappointed she was. I stayed firm, explaining repeatedly that I wanted to support her, but simply could not shoulder half of the financial burden. I also made it clear that hosting a wedding is not something I can do alone, and expecting me to cover it financially is unrealistic. Then, last week, she called me crying, saying that Alex was upset with her because I wouldn't agree to host or pay. She told me that their families are pressuring them and that everyone assumes I should contribute. I listened and tried to stay calm, reminding her that I still want to help in non-financial ways. She said, "I don't know if I can even have a wedding now because no one else will help. I've received texts from other family members suggesting I step up and do the right thing. They say it's a family event and that I'm being unreasonable. My parents have stayed neutral, but I feel like they're silently siding with Emma. I'm starting to feel like the entire family sees me as the villain, even though I'm just saying no to an enormous financial responsibility that isn't mine. I told Emma again that I love her and want her to have a beautiful wedding, but I cannot host or pay for half of it. She responded by saying that she feels like I don't care about her happiness and that she's disappointed in me as a sister. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding and pay for half of it, even though it's causing tension in the family. I feel like I'm being reasonable, but the guilt and family pressure are really starting to wear on me. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiancée. I, 32F, have always been close to my family, especially my younger brother, Jake, 29M. Growing up, he and I shared a lot, from late-night talks to family trips, and I genuinely considered him my best friend. When Jake met Laura, 27F, I initially thought she was sweet. I met her a few times over coffee or at casual family gatherings, and she seemed polite and friendly. But over the past year, as the wedding planning progressed, I've become increasingly concerned about her behavior and her impact on my brother. The first major red flag was at Thanksgiving last year. Jake had invited Laura to our family dinner, and I noticed she kept making subtle digs at our family traditions. For example, she would comment on how our homemade stuffing was a bit amateur, or how our Thanksgiving table looked kind of chaotic. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was just nervous or trying to be funny. But then she started making comments about me personally. She laughed at my job, which I take pride in, calling it boring and pointless, and she joked about my single status in front of the entire family. I was embarrassed, but I tried to laugh it off, thinking perhaps she didn't mean anything by it. The real issues began when wedding planning started in earnest. I offered to help in ways I thought would be meaningful, like organizing invites or helping with decorations. Every time I tried to contribute, Laura would either dismiss my ideas or subtly undermine them. She would say things like, "Oh, we were thinking something more elegant," or "That's cute, but maybe we should go with someone more professional." At first, I told myself not to take it personally, but the pattern became obvious. She seemed determined to make me feel unwelcome and inferior. What finally pushed me over the edge happened about 2 months ago. Jake asked me to help choose bridesmaid dresses for Laura's wedding. I agreed, assuming it would be a collaborative and fun experience. The first day we went shopping, Laura spent the entire time criticizing my opinions, the clothes I suggested, and even my body shape, often in front of the other bridesmaids. She made comments like, "That color will make you look washed out," or "Maybe something looser, it'll hide your flaws." I was shocked and hurt, and when I tried to explain that her comments were unnecessary, she laughed and said, "I'm just being honest, don't take it personally." I tried to brush it off for Jake's sake, but I felt humiliated and angry. After that day, I started noticing more patterns. Laura would invite me to events, and then make subtle jabs the moment I arrived. She would ask about my love life in ways that felt invasive, comment on my career choices, and even make remarks about my parenting skills with my niece, whom I adore and occasionally babysit. Every time I tried to set boundaries or express discomfort, Jake would brush it off, saying things like, "Laura doesn't mean it that way," or "She's just joking, lighten up." I felt caught between supporting my brother and protecting myself from someone who seemed intentionally toxic. Things came to a head last month when Jake called me to discuss the seating chart. He wanted me to make sure my friends didn't clash with Laura's family at the reception. I started voicing my concerns about her behavior, not in a confrontational way, just explaining how her comments and actions had made me uncomfortable and why I felt excluded or disrespected. Jake told me I was overreacting and that I needed to just be polite at the wedding. He said that refusing to attend would hurt him and divide the family. I spent several weeks trying to decide what to do. I love my brother and I don't want to hurt him, but I also can't ignore how consistently Laura has treated me. I finally told Jake that I wouldn't be attending the wedding because I couldn't be around someone who made me feel demeaned and unwelcome. I offered to celebrate with him privately at another time, like a family dinner after the wedding or a smaller get-together, but I couldn't go to the ceremony or reception. Jake was devastated and angry. He accused me of overreacting and trying to ruin his happiness. He said that family is supposed to support each other no matter what, and that I was selfish for prioritizing my feelings over attending one of the most important days of his life. He even said that if I didn't come, it would permanently damage our relationship. Some family members have been supportive and said that my feelings are valid, while others have criticized me for being dramatic or too sensitive. My parents tried to mediate, but ended up frustrated with both sides. I don't take pleasure in not attending my brother's wedding, but I also can't pretend that Laura's behavior hasn't hurt me repeatedly. I've tried everything from ignoring her comments to politely speaking up, but nothing has changed. I genuinely feel that being at the wedding would be emotionally harmful and might lead to a confrontation that I don't want in front of my family and his friends. Now I'm left questioning whether I'm overreacting or being selfish. Am I wrong for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of how his fiancée has treated me? Even though I love him and want him to be happy, I've tried to frame it as a choice between self-respect and family obligation, but I keep second-guessing myself because of the reactions from others. I know weddings are about celebrating love and family, but I also feel like I shouldn't be forced to endure repeated disrespect. AITA? AITA for refusing to let my younger sister bring her newborn to my wedding, even though everyone else thinks I'm being unreasonable. So, some background. I, 32F, have been planning my wedding for almost a year. My fiancé, Mark, 34M, and I are extremely close to our families, but my younger sister, Lily, 24F, has always been complicated. She has a newborn, Sam, who is about 3 months old, and she has a history of being quite unreliable and self-centered. She's a single mom, and while I do try to help her financially and emotionally when I can, she often expects me to drop everything for her needs. When Mark and I first started talking about the guest list, I was honest with my parents and close friends that I didn't want the wedding to revolve around Lily's baby. I wanted a day where I could celebrate with family and friends without constant stress or interruptions, which I fear would happen with a newborn at the wedding. I offered to let Lily come, obviously, but I said I wasn't comfortable with her bringing Sam. She didn't react well at first. She argued that it's her child and that leaving Sam with a babysitter for a long day is unreasonable. She said she's only had 3 months off maternity leave and barely gets a break. I tried to be empathetic, but I also explained that weddings are hectic, loud, and full of people. I genuinely worry about Sam's safety, the stress on Lily, and the fact that it's not a baby-friendly environment. I suggested alternatives. I offered to hire a professional nanny for her if she wanted, and I even said she could come to the rehearsal dinner with Sam, where it's smaller and calmer. I also suggested she could take photos with Sam before or after the ceremony, so she could still have some inclusion. None of these suggestions satisfied her. She said I was being cruel and that I clearly didn't care about her or my nephew. Things escalated when I posted a general, excited for the wedding update on social media. Lily commented something along the lines of, "I can't wait to be there, with Sam of course, since apparently he's not welcome anywhere else." My mom saw this comment and called me, furious that I was denying my niece a place in her own aunt's wedding, and that I should just let the baby come. It's not that hard. My dad is more neutral, but hinted that I might be overreacting. Mark fully supports my stance, though he also wants to avoid a huge family fight on the wedding day. He agrees that the wedding is not an appropriate place for a newborn, especially with over 100 guests, loud music, and long periods of standing. He even offered to speak with Lily himself, but she refuses to take calls from him, saying that it's my wedding, my rules, so I should do what's right. I tried to explain to Lily one last time that my decision isn't about her or Sam personally. It's about the environment, safety, and logistics. I even mentioned that there would be people with allergies, food restrictions, and that the ceremony includes firework displays, which are loud and potentially frightening. She accused me of making excuses and said I was prioritizing the perfect Instagram photos over my family. At this point, my extended family has taken sides. My aunt and uncle think I'm being ridiculous and selfish. Some cousins are quietly supportive, saying that having a baby at a formal event is chaotic. I've even received texts from friends telling me they understand my decision, but to brace for family drama. Lily has now sent me a message that if Sam isn't allowed at the wedding, she won't come at all. She said, and I quote, "If you really loved me and my baby, you'd want us there. But I guess your big day is more important than family." I haven't responded because I honestly don't know what to say. I don't want to start a war with my family, but I also don't want to compromise my wedding experience. I feel stuck because everyone else keeps telling me I'm the AITA here for denying a baby her place in the family celebration. I feel like I'm just trying to create a safe and enjoyable environment for all guests, and I've been more than fair with solutions for Lily to still be involved without bringing Sam. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her newborn to my wedding, even though she's threatening not to come. For context, the wedding is indoor-outdoor, about 150 guests, lasts around 6 hours including ceremony and reception, and there's a planned firework display at night. Lily is a very sensitive person and tends to escalate emotionally when she doesn't get her way, which is part of why I'm hesitant. I also want the day to be about me and Mark without constant worry about a baby's safety or comfort. I genuinely want to do right by my sister and nephew, but I feel like I've already made many compromises and she refuses them. I can't help but feel that her ultimatums are unfair. I'm asking Reddit, is it really unreasonable to say that a 3-month-old cannot attend a wedding that's loud, long, and crowded? Or am I the bad guy here? AITA for refusing to help my sister after she deliberately sabotaged my career? I, 32F, have always been the responsible sibling in my family. My younger sister, Jenna, 28F, has a history of impulsive decisions and questionable ethics. We've had our fair share of arguments growing up, but I never imagined it would reach the point where I'd have to cut her out of professional matters entirely. The situation is complicated, and I want to see if I'm actually in the wrong here. A few years ago, I landed a job at a well-known marketing firm in the city I live in. This was a huge deal for me because I had spent years trying to get my foot in the door. The job required a lot of travel and networking, which meant long hours, but I was determined to prove myself. Jenna, on the other hand, had been struggling to find steady work. She bounced from one gig to another, often blaming her employers for not appreciating her talents. One day, Jenna called me out of the blue. She told me that she had recently started a freelance marketing business and needed help landing clients. At first, I thought, okay, maybe I can give her some guidance. I agreed to let her sit in on a few of my client meetings virtually so she could see how I handled presentations and strategy sessions. I explicitly told her that she couldn't take any notes or copy anything, just observe. She promised she would follow the rules. Fast forward a few months, and I started noticing some odd things. I began hearing from colleagues that clients had mentioned being approached by a freelancer offering the same strategies I had presented to them, but at lower rates. At first, I brushed it off as coincidence, but it kept happening. Eventually, I discovered that Jenna had not only taken my presentations verbatim, but had pitched them to my clients as her own work. She even used examples from our calls without any modifications. I confronted her about it. She shrugged it off and said she was just trying to get her business off the ground, and that I shouldn't be upset because she hadn't actually stolen my clients permanently. I was furious. I explained that she had broken my trust and endangered my professional reputation. After a heated argument, she apologized but said she didn't see the harm in what she did. I cut off all professional interaction with her after that. Things were tense for a while, but we maintained a semblance of a personal relationship, mostly because our parents refused to let us completely sever ties. Then about 6 months ago, she came to me in a panic. She had been offered a freelance contract with a big brand, but needed someone to co-sign the paperwork and verify her experience. She asked me to vouch for her, saying that she had learned her lesson and would never do anything unethical again. She painted herself as a victim of circumstance and said it was a one-time mistake. I refused. I explained that I could not risk my reputation on someone who had deliberately copied my work and misrepresented themselves to clients. She cried, screamed, and then tried to guilt-trip me by bringing our parents into the conversation. She told them that I was being selfish and that families should support each other, no matter what. I didn't back down. I told them the truth about why I refused and asked them to respect my decision. Since then, Jenna has been cold toward me. She refuses to speak except when necessary and constantly posts on social media about toxic family members who won't help you rise. Our parents have tried to mediate, saying that I should forgive and forget, but I feel like what she did was not something that can just be shrugged off or excused in the name of family loyalty. I have also noticed that some mutual friends are starting to side with her, saying I should be more supportive. This makes me feel isolated because I don't want to compromise my values or risk my career for someone who has repeatedly shown she doesn't respect boundaries. Recently, Jenna sent me another message asking for help with another client opportunity, but I ignored it. She then posted a passive-aggressive message on social media, implying that some people will abandon their own blood over a mistake. My parents are frustrated with me, saying that I am too harsh and that I need to let go of grudges. I feel conflicted because part of me wonders if I'm being too rigid and if I should give her a second chance. But another part of me knows that trust, once broken, is not something I can gamble with, especially when it involves my livelihood. I want to maintain a personal relationship with her if possible, but I feel that professionally, I cannot involve her in any way. My friends are divided. Some say I'm completely justified in protecting myself, while others say I should forgive her and that family should come first. So, AITA for refusing to help my sister professionally after she deliberately copied my work and misrepresented herself to my clients, even if it means further straining our relationship and upsetting my parents. I'm willing to be criticized if I'm being too stubborn, but I genuinely feel that some actions cross a line that cannot be undone with an apology. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's wedding after she insulted me in front of our entire family. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Lauren, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child, academically successful, socially confident, and always the favorite of our parents. I was quieter, more reserved, and often felt overshadowed by her. Despite this, we've had moments where we were close, particularly after I moved out for college and started building my own life. However, tension has always bubbled under the surface. About a year ago, Lauren got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 34M, who I've known since high school. I like him well enough, though he could be a bit oblivious to family drama. When she first announced the wedding, I was genuinely excited. I expected it to be a small, elegant event, something intimate with family and close friends. Lauren had other ideas. She planned a huge, extravagant wedding, which would cost an insane amount of money and take place across the country. She sent out invitations months in advance, expecting everyone to pay their own way, which I had no issue with, though I knew it would be challenging for some family members. A few months into the planning, Lauren started making subtle but cutting remarks about my life choices. For instance, when I mentioned that I was considering moving to a smaller apartment to save money, she said, "Oh, you probably wouldn't want a real home like mine anyway, right?" At first, I brushed it off as her being competitive, but became more pointed. She made comments about my career, my relationships, even my hobbies. I tried to ignore them, thinking it was just stress talking. Then came the wedding party selection. Lauren invited me to be a bridesmaid, which I accepted, partly because I wanted to support her despite everything. But once I agreed, she began assigning responsibilities in a way that felt designed to humiliate me. For instance, she asked me to organize a bachelorette party, but explicitly said she didn't want any cheap decorations or fun little games that make everyone look silly. I tried suggesting a few affordable ideas, and each time she dismissed them with a sigh or a sarcastic remark. Things escalated during the bridal shower. Lauren's friends were there, and she made a point of highlighting how much she had spent on everything, constantly comparing it to what I was contributing. I brought a thoughtful gift that I spent weeks picking out, and she said, loudly, "Well, it's nice, I guess, but I suppose it's the thought that counts, right?" Everyone laughed. I felt humiliated, and some of her friends gave me sympathetic glances, but it didn't help much. The breaking point happened at the rehearsal dinner. Our parents and some extended family were present. Lauren was giving a speech about her journey to finding Mark and naturally included anecdotes from our childhood. She brought up a time I had accidentally broken one of her favorite childhood dolls, and while most siblings might have laughed it off as an innocent memory, Lauren turned it into a long, dramatic story about how careless I had been, complete with exaggerated gestures and snide commentary. I tried to laugh along, but the more I smiled, the more she went in, making me the butt of the joke. By the end, I was near tears. After the dinner, I told her I was hurt by how she treated me in front of everyone. I said I didn't want to be made a spectacle or humiliated during her wedding. Lauren got defensive and accused me of being overly sensitive. She said, "I've been planning this wedding for a year, and you're acting like this is all about you. Can't you just be happy for me?" I reminded her that being happy for her didn't mean I had to accept public humiliation. She refused to apologize and said if I didn't participate, it would ruin her big day. I spent a few sleepless nights weighing what to do. I love my sister in my own way, but I also have self-respect. Ultimately, I decided to step down as a bridesmaid and informed her that I would not attend the wedding if she intended to insult me in front of the guests. I offered to send a generous gift and a heartfelt note, but I was firm that I would not be part of an event where I would be publicly demeaned. When I told Lauren, she reacted explosively. She accused me of being selfish, jealous, and ungrateful. She said I was choosing my feelings over family and threatened to exclude me from all future family gatherings. My parents are caught in the middle. They understand why I don't want to be humiliated, but they also feel I should attend the wedding for the sake of family unity. Some extended relatives have reached out, siding with her, saying that I am overreacting and that weddings naturally involve teasing and jokes. Others have been supportive of my decision, saying I shouldn't feel obligated to tolerate bullying. Since then, the situation has only worsened. Lauren posted about the wedding on social media, tagging family members and friends, and even made a vague post about people who can't celebrate with grace. I haven't responded publicly, but privately, my relationship with her has deteriorated. I feel hurt, disappointed, and conflicted. I don't want to lose my sister completely, but I also feel that setting boundaries is necessary for my own mental health. I'm aware that some people might say I should have toughed it out for the sake of family appearances, but I genuinely believe that being part of the wedding under these conditions would have been humiliating and damaging to my self-esteem. I don't know if I overreacted or if I'm justified. So, AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's wedding after she publicly insulted me and refused to apologize. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering a secret about my family that completely changed my perception of her and our parents. I've been wrestling with this for months, and honestly, I'm still not sure if I'm the asshole here. I, 28F, have always been close with my family, especially my younger sister, Emily, 25F. We grew up in a fairly typical household with our parents, Tom and Linda. I would describe my childhood as generally happy, although like any family, we had our issues. Our parents were loving but had strict expectations, particularly about appearances and success. Emily and I shared everything, from minor crushes in middle school to big life decisions as adults. Emily got engaged about a year ago to her boyfriend, Ryan. I met Ryan a couple of times before the engagement, and while we didn't click immediately, I didn't think much of it. After the engagement, the wedding planning started, and I was thrilled. I was involved in dress shopping, tasting cakes, and even helped Emily with some of the seating arrangements because our family is large and chaotic. I honestly felt like we were in sync, and I was excited for her. Everything seemed normal until about 3 months ago. One evening, I was at home when our parents called me, unusually anxious, asking me to come over. When I got there, I found Emily in tears and both of our parents visibly upset. Emily started telling me that she had discovered something about our father's past. Apparently, when he was younger, he had been involved in a serious legal incident. Something criminal, though it didn't lead to a conviction, and it had been completely swept under the rug by our family. What shocked me even more was that our mother knew about it all along and had deliberately hidden it from both of us and our siblings. I won't go into every detail, but it involved some financial fraud and a cover-up that put other people in very difficult situations. It was enough to make me question everything I thought I knew about our family. Emily was more hurt than angry. She's always been the forgive and move on type, but I couldn't help feeling like my whole sense of safety and trust had been ripped away. The conversation quickly shifted when Emily told me that she couldn't go forward with the wedding if our parents were going to be involved because she didn't want to be associated with their behavior. She asked me how I felt about it, and I didn't answer immediately. I spent the next few days thinking about it, reading through legal documents she had somehow found, and processing the betrayal I felt. I realized I couldn't just act normal and attend a wedding surrounded by people who had hidden something so serious from me my entire life. When I told Emily that I couldn't attend her wedding if our parents were going to be there, she was hurt and confused. She insisted that I was overreacting, that this was her special day, and that I should put my feelings aside. I tried explaining that it wasn't about her day. It was about the fact that I would be forced to sit next to the people who had betrayed my trust in the most fundamental way. I felt like I would be enabling their deception by participating, and that I would never forgive them if I pretended everything was normal. Emily accused me of being dramatic and selfish, saying that I was prioritizing my anger over my love for her. Our parents got involved at this point, trying to convince me that I was blowing things out of proportion and that family secrets are complicated. They said everyone makes mistakes and that they had their reasons for keeping certain things quiet. They also argued that a wedding should be about love and not about past grievances. I understand their point intellectually, but emotionally, I can't separate the past from the present. It feels like acknowledging their presence at the wedding would be condoning their deception. I ended up telling Emily that I wouldn't attend the wedding if our parents were invited. She was extremely upset, and we haven't spoken much since. She went ahead and had the wedding with our parents present, and I stayed home. I have received texts from aunts and cousins asking why I wasn't there, and some have accused me of being immature and stubborn. Emily has stopped talking to me entirely, and I feel like I may have lost my sister forever. I don't share my feelings lightly. I've always been someone who tries to forgive and move on, but this situation feels different. This isn't about a fight or a disagreement over trivial things. It's about a fundamental breach of trust that I'm not sure I can ever reconcile with. My friends tell me that I did the right thing by standing up for myself, but part of me feels like I may have been too rigid, too unwilling to compromise. I keep thinking maybe I should have gone and just sat quietly, keeping my distance, but even imagining myself at that wedding made me feel sick. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I couldn't bear to be around our parents after discovering a serious family secret. I'm haunted by the thought that I may have hurt Emily more than anyone else, but I also feel like I had to protect my own sense of integrity and boundaries. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over a family secret? This all started a few months ago. My 29F sister, Clara, 31F, got engaged to her long-term boyfriend, Matt, 33M. The wedding planning was going smoothly, or so I thought, until one weekend, during a casual family gathering, something came up that changed everything. Clara has always been the type of person who loves big, traditional weddings. She invited almost everyone from both sides of the family, which I thought was great because I love large gatherings. Our family has always been tight-knit, at least on the surface. I, on the other hand, am more introverted and prefer smaller, intimate events. I don't really like drama, and I try to avoid it whenever possible. During this family gathering, my aunt, who is known for being a little too honest, started talking about past relationships. Somehow, the conversation turned to Clara's ex-boyfriend, Dan, who had disappeared from her life about 6 years ago. The thing is, I know a secret about Dan that no one else seems to know. Years ago, before Clara met Matt, she dated Dan seriously. Everyone thought they broke up amicably, but the truth is that Dan had a gambling addiction and was involved in some shady activities that could have had legal consequences. He had stolen a large sum of money from my parents' business, and my dad had covered up to protect the family's reputation. I had sworn to myself and to my parents that I would never tell anyone outside the family, especially Clara, because it would ruin her image of him and our family's name. During this gathering, my aunt started jokingly asking why Dan disappeared from our lives, implying that he might have been shady. I felt a pit in my stomach because I knew the truth. I tried to laugh it off and change the subject, but my aunt kept pressing. She said, "Come on, someone has to know the real story, right?" I froze for a moment, and before I could stop myself, I blurted out the truth. I told everyone that Dan had stolen money from our parents, and that's why he had vanished from our lives. I also added, perhaps unnecessarily, that my parents had covered it up to protect Clara and the family. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just felt trapped and thought that the truth needed to come out, even if it was awkward. The room went silent. Clara looked at me in shock, and Matt's face turned red. My parents were horrified, and my aunt actually looked relieved, as if she had been waiting for someone to spill the beans. Clara immediately stormed out of the room, and Matt followed her. After that day, things got tense. Clara was furious. She accused me of ruining her engagement and demanded that I apologize publicly at the wedding. She said that she didn't want her friends and extended family to hear this during her big day. I told her I understood her anger, but also explained that she deserved to know the truth before marrying someone else. She said I had no right to embarrass her, and that I should have kept the secret for the sake of peace. Over the next few weeks, I tried reaching out to Clara, but she refused to speak to me. Matt sent me a cold email, saying that if I attended the wedding, I would be asked to leave immediately. My parents are caught in the middle. They're disappointed in me, but also kind of relieved that the secret is finally out. Here's the thing. I really regret the timing and the way I revealed the information. I didn't intend to make it about me, and I didn't anticipate how explosive it would be in that setting. But at the same time, I feel like Clara had the right to know about Dan's past before she got married. I just didn't consider that it would make her wedding planning miserable and possibly damage her relationship with Matt. Some family members have told me I was brave for telling the truth, while others have said I'm selfish and need to respect boundaries. I'm torn because I didn't want to lie to Clara, but I also didn't want to hurt her on what's supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Now, Clara has canceled all her pre-wedding events, and the wedding itself is on hold while she decides whether she even wants to go through with it. My parents are pressuring me to apologize, but I feel like apologizing for telling the truth doesn't sit right either. I've been avoiding family gatherings, and the tension is palpable. I honestly don't know if I was wrong. I know I messed up the timing, but I can't shake the feeling that Clara deserved to know who Dan really was. AITA for revealing a family secret that ruined my sister's wedding plans? AITA for refusing to host my brother's elaborate birthday party after he disrespected my home and boundaries? I, 32F, have always been the practical one in my family. My younger brother, Ethan, 28M, is the type who lives for spectacle. He loves parties, big gatherings, and the kind of events that leave people talking for months. I've always supported him in spirit, but I'm not much of a social organizer myself. I live in a modest apartment, in a building where space is limited, and I enjoy quiet evenings and low-key gatherings. Ethan's birthday is coming up, and for the last few years, he's made a habit of asking me to host something extravagant. Last year, he wanted a 50-person rooftop party, and this year he said he wanted a full, immersive experience for about 40 people in my apartment. I told him multiple times that my apartment isn't equipped for that. There's barely enough room for a dinner party for 10, let alone a big event with decorations, catering, and a DJ. My main point was that it wouldn't be safe or comfortable for anyone, including my neighbors, who would probably complain. He responded with the usual guilt trip about how I'm so boring and never want to do anything fun, and how this is his one day to celebrate in style. I tried to compromise. I offered to host a small dinner with 6 close friends and family members. I even suggested that we could rent a small venue for the bigger party or hold it at a friend's house that has more space. Ethan flatly refused both ideas. He said, "No, it has to be at your place. Everyone knows your place is central and cool. Don't make me look bad." I was frustrated but tried to stay calm, explaining that my place isn't central in the way he's imagining and that I really cannot accommodate that many people. The situation escalated when Ethan started bringing over event planners without my consent. A week ago, 3 different people arrived at my apartment carrying banners, streamers, and a massive sound system. I was at work and came home to find my living room basically turned into a mini nightclub. I was shocked, and the planners told me they were there because Ethan said I agreed. I called Ethan, and he shrugged, saying, "Well, you never said no." I told him I would not host the party under any circumstances. I was firm, explaining that my apartment isn't a venue, I cannot handle that many people, and that I did not agree to this. He blew up, claiming I was ruining his birthday, and that I was selfish for not bending this one time. He even tried to argue that I had a duty as his older sibling to make sure his birthday is perfect. Then, 2 days ago, things got worse. Ethan showed up at my door with his friends and insisted on starting the party anyway. He brought alcohol, rented a fog machine, and started setting up what he called the main event. I asked him to leave, explaining again that this is my home, and he cannot just turn it into a public venue without my consent. His friends argued with me, saying I should lighten up and that it's just a birthday. I called the police, and they came, told him he was trespassing, and made him leave. Ethan texted me afterwards saying I was overreacting, that the cops didn't have to get involved, and that our family would never forgive me for this. I spent the next day cleaning up the mess. There was glitter, spilled drinks, and even some minor damage to the walls from a speaker falling over. I told my parents what happened, and they sided with me, saying that Ethan was in the wrong. But when I brought it up with other family members, some of them said I should have just let him celebrate or been more flexible, which made me feel guilty. The issue now is that Ethan refuses to speak to me and has been posting on social media about how heartless and unfun I am. My parents are worried that the family dynamic is strained, and some distant relatives are asking if I ever plan to forgive him for ruining his birthday. I feel like I'm being punished for enforcing basic boundaries. I'm also dealing with anxiety over people thinking I'm unreasonable, especially because the event planners he invited are mutual acquaintances. Some of them have subtly hinted that I should have gone along with it, and I feel like my reputation in my friend group is suffering, even though I know I was right. I have no intention of hosting a large party in my apartment now or in the future. I blocked the planners and told Ethan that any future attempts to involve my home will be considered trespassing. I even considered having him officially banned from my apartment if he ever tries to do something like this again. But part of me worries that I might be the villain in this situation, at least in the eyes of the family or the people who expected a big party. So, AITA for refusing to host a massive birthday party for my brother, especially after he ignored my boundaries and turned up at my home anyway. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé plan our family reunion. So a little context first. My family is complicated, to put it lightly. I'm 32F, and my younger sister, Lily, is 29F. We've always had a tumultuous relationship, but we're generally close enough to maintain family functions without too many disasters. Our parents live across the country, and most extended family members are scattered. So once a year, we try to organize a big family reunion where everyone comes together for a weekend. In the past, my parents usually handle the planning, but after my dad passed away 2 years ago and my mom decided she didn't want the stress anymore, the responsibility fell to me and Lily. Lily got engaged last year to her fiancé, Mark, who is 33M. Mark is great on a personal level. He's funny, charming, and seems to genuinely love my sister, but he is extremely controlling and has very strong opinions about how everything should be done. I have seen him occasionally make decisions for my sister without consulting her, and while I don't usually interfere in her relationship, this dynamic has always made me wary. Fast forward to last month. We were trying to figure out dates for this year's reunion. I suggested we do it over Labor Day weekend because it works best for most family members, and I started a group chat to brainstorm venues, activities, and accommodations. Lily immediately jumped on board, but within a day, Mark started sending messages in the group chat. At first, it was small things. He suggested renting a cabin instead of a house, suggested a fancy catering company, and commented on which relatives he thought might be too boring for certain activities. I brushed it off as him just being enthusiastic. Then things escalated. Mark started sending long messages about how he wanted to take over the planning, including a detailed itinerary, assigned tasks for each family member, and a budget that was far beyond what anyone was expecting to spend. He even started telling people which rooms they should stay in and what clothes they should pack for certain theme nights. I politely told him that while I appreciated the effort, I was already managing the planning and prefer to handle it myself. He replied with something along the lines of, "I'm just trying to make it perfect for everyone. You're overthinking it." I didn't respond further at that point, but the situation got worse. He began privately messaging other relatives, trying to get them on his side, and asking them to support my vision for the reunion. A few relatives texted me, saying Mark had suggested we were being too rigid and that the reunion should be more Mark's way. I was frustrated, and when I confronted Lily about it, she said, "Don't worry about it." I told him to back off, but it became clear that she wasn't enforcing it very strongly. Finally, I decided to set boundaries. I sent a message to Mark in the group chat, politely but firmly stating that the reunion planning was staying under my control and that while suggestions were welcome, the final decisions would be mine. I also made it clear that repeatedly trying to take over would not be acceptable. I assumed this would settle it. It didn't. Mark became passive-aggressive in messages, sending notes like, "I hope everyone likes what I suggested, even if it's not chosen, and it's fine if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, but I was trying to save everyone money." Things started to get tense with the family. My mom even sent me a worried message asking if I had talked some sense into Mark because she was afraid of drama. I finally had enough and told Lily that if Mark continued to interfere, he would not be invited to the reunion. Lily got upset, and we got into a huge argument. She accused me of being controlling and not letting her fiancé be involved. I explained that it wasn't about excluding him personally. It was about the reunion being a family event that I had historically managed. And Mark trying to take control was causing tension and stress for everyone. She argued that I was overreacting and that I should let him help because he's part of the family now too. After several days of back and forth, Lily refused to attend if Mark wasn't invited, claiming that she wanted them to do things as a couple. I told her I couldn't compromise on this because I couldn't allow someone who wasn't part of the family's core tradition to dictate how the reunion was run. The rest of the family is split. Some think I'm right, saying the reunion is a family tradition and shouldn't be hijacked, while others think I should learn to compromise and let Mark contribute. Now, Lily is upset and barely speaking to me. I'm stressed because I want the reunion to happen smoothly, and I feel like I'm being attacked for setting reasonable boundaries. I know Mark is technically part of the family by engagement, but he hasn't shown any real consideration for anyone's feelings besides his own vision. I'm wondering if I went too far by threatening to exclude him entirely, but at the same time, I don't see another way to prevent chaos. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé take over the planning of our family reunion, even though it has caused tension between my sister and me. AITA for refusing to compromise on my wedding plans, even though it upset my family. I, 29F, have been engaged to my fiancé, David, 31M, for about a year. We've been together for 6 years and always had a pretty solid relationship. From the beginning, we both agreed that when we got married, it would be a celebration of us, not a show for anyone else. That said, as our engagement went on, things started to get more complicated because of family expectations. David and I are very private people, and we both come from large families. My parents, especially my mother, have always been very traditional. They have certain ideas about how weddings should be: white dresses, big ceremonies, hundreds of guests, professional photographers, the whole 9 yards. David's family is a bit more laid back, but they also like big gatherings, and some of them travel quite a bit for events. From the start, we knew that our wedding was going to require some tough decisions because we couldn't please everyone. After much discussion, David and I decided we wanted a small, intimate wedding. Something under 50 people, mostly immediate family and close friends. We rented a beautiful garden venue about 3 hours from where most of our family lives. We planned a short ceremony followed by a casual reception with a buffet and a small dance area. We also decided to forego the typical wedding traditions like a huge cake cutting, bridal party, and even the formal sit-down dinner. We wanted the day to feel personal and relaxed, not like a production. The problem started when we sent out our save-the-date notices and the invitations a few months later. Almost immediately, my mother started complaining. She said that our wedding was too small and that guests will feel unwelcome if there isn't a full program. She started pressuring me to invite distant relatives, co-workers, and family friends we barely see, insisting that it was disrespectful not to. She even started hinting that if we didn't comply, she might not attend. I tried to explain that our intention was to keep it intimate, but she would bring up examples of other weddings we supposedly should emulate. David's parents were a bit more reasonable, but some of his siblings also wanted a larger guest list. They suggested adding 20 or more people to accommodate everyone, which would have doubled our numbers and changed the feel of the wedding entirely. I tried to negotiate, explaining that it was our day and we had limited space, but they accused us of being selfish and stubborn. The tension escalated when my mom started talking about wedding gifts in a manipulative way. She said she had already invested so much money in the dress she wanted me to wear and hinted that if I didn't wear it, it would be a waste. I told her I appreciated her effort, but I had already picked a dress that I felt comfortable in, which was very different from the one she had envisioned. She became very upset, claiming I was rejecting her and that no daughter should do this to her mother. I tried to remain calm and stick to my boundaries. I explained that our wedding was about us, not anyone else, and that we wanted to keep it small for personal reasons. I even offered to let her help with small aspects like flowers or music, but she insisted that the size of the guest list and the dress were non-negotiable. David supported me fully, but his support made some of my family more defensive, saying he was controlling me and forcing me to hurt my family. Things reached a breaking point 2 months before the wedding. My mother announced that she had invited a large group of distant cousins and family friends without our permission. She said she felt it was her duty as a mother to make sure the wedding was properly attended. David and I were furious. We had limited seating, and now we had to tell people we couldn't accommodate them. I tried to talk to my mom calmly, but she accused me of being ungrateful and rude. She also told me that if I didn't go along with her plan, she would skip the wedding entirely. At this point, I made a final decision. I sent out a revised guest list and explicitly told everyone we could not add additional people. I told my mom that we loved her and wanted her there, but the wedding had to reflect our wishes. She responded by saying that I had ruined everything and that I would regret it forever. David and I tried to ignore it and focus on the wedding, but the tension didn't go away. My father tried to mediate, but it mostly just led to arguments about tradition and respect. On the day of the wedding, things were actually beautiful. We had our ceremony under a small arch of flowers. Our closest friends and family were present, and the whole day felt intimate and joyful. My mom showed up, but she spent the day visibly upset, mostly avoiding conversation and making snide remarks about the size of the wedding and the food. She didn't talk to me much, only to criticize small details, like the seating arrangement or the playlist. David's family was supportive and kind, but my mother's attitude created a lot of tension. After the wedding, the fallout continued. My mom has been cold and distant, accusing me of being selfish and unfilial. She claims I hurt the family and says she doesn't understand how I could prioritize a man over her. My father has tried to smooth things over, but he also feels torn because he doesn't want to undermine me or David. Some of my relatives have reached out to express disappointment about the size of the wedding, while others have been supportive. I feel like I did the right thing by standing my ground. The wedding was exactly what David and I wanted, and it was a joyful, meaningful day for us. I tried to compromise where I could, but certain demands would have completely changed the nature of our celebration. I also feel hurt because my mother has made me feel guilty for simply making choices that reflect my personality and values. David has been incredibly supportive, but I can't help but feel conflicted about my family's reaction. So, AITA for refusing to compromise on our wedding plans, even though it upset my family? AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she lost her job and accused me of being selfish? So, this is going to be a long one, but I feel like I need to give all the context. I, 34M, have a sister, Emily, 31F, who has always had a hard time with stability. She's had a string of jobs she couldn't hold on to, has moved between cities a lot, and has struggled financially for most of her adult life. Our parents passed away when she was 25, so I've always felt a kind of responsibility toward her, but over the past decade, I've also learned to set boundaries because she tends to take advantage of people's goodwill. I live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a big city, and I've worked hard to get to a point where I can pay my bills comfortably, save a bit, and have a decent social life. I've been single for a few years, and I'm careful about who I let into my space. I've had roommates before, and honestly, they've all been short-term because I like having my own routine and privacy. Emily recently moved to another state for a new job. She was excited, and I tried to support her emotionally and financially in small ways, like sending care packages or helping her look for affordable apartments. Last month, she called me in tears, saying she'd been fired unexpectedly. Her apartment lease was up, and she had nowhere to go. I was sympathetic, but I also knew this could get messy. Emily has moved back in with friends or family before for months at a time, and it often ended with tension because she's not great at paying rent or helping around the house consistently. When she asked if she could stay with me, my first instinct was to say no. I explained that my apartment is small, I work long hours, and I need stability in my own life. I suggested she look for short-term rentals, extended stay hotels, or even sublets while she got back on her feet. I offered to help her financially with a deposit for a small studio if necessary, but I was firm about her not moving in with me. She got upset and accused me of being selfish, saying I should treat my own family like family and help her because she had nowhere else to turn. She argued that I have no idea what it's like to feel lost or desperate, and that refusing her is cruel. I tried to reason with her, saying I've supported her in other ways and that allowing her to move in would create tension and stress for both of us. I also reminded her that I live alone and rely on my apartment as my sanctuary. She then started bringing up past incidents where she felt I hadn't helped her enough, like when she was going through a breakup or had minor financial troubles. I felt like she was piling on guilt to make me change my mind. Over the next week, she kept sending me messages, sometimes daily, about how desperate she was, and she hinted that if I didn't let her stay, she might have to sleep in her car or with strangers. I responded empathetically, reiterated my offers to help with money or finding a place, and said firmly that my apartment wasn't an option. She then started telling mutual friends and even a few family acquaintances that I had abandoned her when she needed me, which started to make me feel anxious about my reputation. Eventually, she found a cheap sublet through a friend, but it's far away and not in the safest area. I helped her with moving costs and gave her some groceries, but she's still frustrated with me. She keeps posting on social media about how family is supposed to be there for you, and subtly tags me in posts about helping siblings in need. Some of our mutual friends have asked me if I feel guilty, and I honestly don't. I do care about Emily, but I also care about my own well-being and mental health, and letting her move in would have disrupted my life significantly. I'm still in touch with her daily to check how she's doing and help in practical ways, but I haven't budged on the living situation. Now, Emily has stopped talking to me directly and seems to be holding a grudge. Some friends have suggested I could have done more, like let her stay for a week or two as a compromise. Others think I did the right thing because boundaries are important. My partnerless, quiet life is not a free housing service, and I feel like I made the responsible decision. But I also wonder if I'm being seen as cold or uncaring. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she lost her job, even though she accused me of being selfish and abandoned. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a decade-long family feud. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, particularly my sister, Emily, 35F. Growing up, Emily was always the golden child, the one who seemed to do no wrong, while I constantly felt overlooked and criticized. Our parents, although loving in their own way, reinforced this dynamic. They praised Emily for her accomplishments and often dismissed or downplayed mine. This created a deep-seated resentment that lingered well into adulthood. For years, I tried to maintain a civil relationship with Emily, but small slights, perceived or real, kept building up, and eventually, I decided to distance myself from the family entirely. About 10 years ago, the feud reached a tipping point. Emily had started dating someone I didn't approve of. I expressed my concerns, but she took it personally, and our conversations escalated into full-blown arguments. In hindsight, my delivery was probably harsh, but I believed I was trying to protect her. She, however, saw it as me interfering in her life. The fallout was immediate. Our parents sided with Emily, accusing me of being overly critical and unsupportive. I felt betrayed, hurt, and angry, so I decided to step away from the family. I moved to a different city, stopped attending family gatherings, and limited communication to occasional texts during birthdays or holidays. Over the years, Emily got married, had kids, and celebrated milestones, all without me. I occasionally received invitations, but I politely declined, citing work or personal commitments. My parents expressed disappointment, but I was firm in my boundaries. Despite the distance, I kept up with Emily's life from social media and through mutual friends. I can honestly say that I never wanted to completely sever ties. I just needed space to heal and feel respected. Fast forward to now. Emily is getting married again. Yes, this is her second marriage, and she's asked me to attend her wedding. She sent a formal invitation about 3 months ago, along with a message on social media, saying how much she wanted me there. I was taken aback, not just because of the wedding itself, but because it felt sudden. After a decade of estrangement, I wasn't sure how to navigate this. Part of me wanted to attend, for the sake of closure and perhaps rebuilding some form of relationship. Another part of me felt that attending would be a betrayal of the boundaries I'd established for my own mental well-being. I decided to be honest with her. I sent a message explaining that while I acknowledged her invitation and wished her happiness, I was not ready to attend her wedding. I mentioned that the years of distance had left emotional scars that I wasn't ready to confront in such an intense setting. I hoped this explanation would be enough to convey that my decision wasn't about anger or resentment toward her personally, but about my own limits. The response I received was immediate and harsh. Emily accused me of being selfish and unwilling to forgive. She told me that I was choosing to stay angry over her happiness, that I had no right to impose my emotional issues on her special day, and that my absence would be a permanent stain on our relationship. She also copied my parents on the message, and suddenly I was facing an avalanche of guilt trips. My parents expressed extreme disappointment, implying that I was ruining family unity and that my stubbornness was causing pain for everyone involved. My friends suggested I try to attend, at least for a short while, to make peace. I have thought long and hard about this. I understand that my decision will hurt Emily and probably my parents, but I also know that attending the wedding would be emotionally overwhelming. I can picture the awkwardness, the potential confrontation, and the pressure to be happy while feeling anything but. I don't want to risk an explosive scene or fake smiles that would only make me resent her further. I also worry that my presence might be perceived as me trying to make amends on her timeline, rather than genuinely healing at my own pace. Some people in my life have told me that I should just put aside my hurt and go, because family only comes around once, and weddings are important milestones. Others argue that attending would invalidate the boundaries I've worked so hard to establish over the past 10 years. I feel torn. On one hand, I love my sister and I wish things were different. On the other hand, I've learned the hard way that trying to force closeness when the foundation is broken usually leads to more pain. After sending my message, I've received a few more confrontational texts, as well as some emotional appeals. Emily wrote about how she remembers her childhood and wants me to be part of her new life, how she's changing and hoping we can too. She even offered to meet for coffee before the wedding to clear the air, but I'm hesitant. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting and missing an opportunity for reconciliation. Another part of me feels that any attempt at reconciliation on her terms could reopen old wounds and set me back emotionally. I've considered sending a gift instead, something meaningful but not over the top, as a way of showing that I care about her happiness without physically being present. But I'm not sure if that would even be accepted or if it would just make the situation more awkward. My parents continue to subtly pressure me, implying that my refusal makes me ungrateful and difficult. I've tried explaining that my decision is about emotional readiness and personal boundaries, but it doesn't seem to register. It feels like they see it purely as a moral failing rather than a protective choice for my mental health. So here I am, stuck between a rock and a hard place. I want to respect my own needs, but I also don't want to be seen as the villain in my family story. I've had friends ask me if I'm overthinking it, if I'm being dramatic, or if I should just get over it and attend. But after 10 years of estrangement and countless attempts at small gestures that were misinterpreted, I feel like my choice to stay away is reasonable. I don't know if I'm making the right decision, and I feel a mix of guilt, sadness, and relief all at once. I want to do what's healthiest for me, but the emotional weight of my family's disapproval is heavy. I guess my question is this: AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after all these years, even if it hurts her and my parents? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.